So we're continuing with episode 2 of Produce 101 Japan. The Girls, season 3. Uh, it's interesting that after this episode, the initial rankings after their first additions in the groups, the rankings only keep 4 of my top 11 intact. And then the end of the episode rankings, which I think are currently based on voting rather than having anything to do with what the judges or trainers decide at the end of this episode, which is kind of a cliffhanger because they don't tell you what their final class is. I think the current voting uh, only retains 2 of my top 11. And so that kind of worries me a bit because I don't really understand the voting. If we just look at it really quickly, so we have these are basically the top 11 based on the current voting. Suzu at the top, Kokoro, Suzumi, Momona, Mui, Kokona, Ran, Rio, Ayane, Kagura, and Sakura. And I think Kagura may be doing kind of badly, but poorly. Let's just double check there. And so you see that uh, she's got an F class. That's where she's starting out. And I think even for my rankings, she wasn't that high up there. So, anyways, that's just the way things go sometimes. And like I said at the beginning, I almost never predict what people are gonna vote for in the end. So, let's just get back to it. And so in the beginning, we get a sad montage, just kind of explaining things about how all these girls, they're kind of like quitting school, as if there's like no other path for them to move forward in. And then after that, it just kind of gets right back into the performances. So where we left off was, there was a cliffhanger with the last group. I can't remember their names right now. I think it was Bloom with the 2 idols, and so we didn't actually get to see them perform. But then we continue with some other performances. And so, like I said before, I don't want to recap the whole episode. I basically just want to talk about things that stood out for me. And so, the first group we get to see is Remember Me, and that has Fujimoto Ayaka, Kurakawa Honoka, Sakaguchi Reno, Sasuke Tsukushi, who kind of has she has like the alien face look girl, and she's kind of really popular. An interesting thing about this is that she does have very good expressions, so I understand why she got ranked A at the end of this performance. I also thought that Miyu actually did not that badly here. I feel like her stoic face fit the mood of this song. And then Ayaka was actually pretty good at talk singing. But overall, it was a subdued performance, and one of the trainers actually mentions that later on. I think it might have been Nakasone Rio, but I still think that they conveyed the vibe well of this song. And after this, they got to freestyle, and I feel like a lot of people in chat were saying that they ranked them based on the freestyle because during the performance they were kind of not that far off an even level. But the way I see it is that because Tsukushi did so well compared to the others, the rest of them kind of just got bell curved, and so it's not actually that they should be in like rank C or B. It's that Tsukushi did so well that some of them got knocked down to C. But maybe they should have been around B. But I feel like Tsukushi kind of deserves that A. But I feel like some others may have suffered in ranking because of just like standing next to her or comparing to her. And some people were saying that Reno probably deserved a lot better. And I don't know anything about that. But I do know that if Tsukushi's performance was enough to stand her apart from Reno, then there's no reason to just put Reno in the A grade next to Tsukushi. And basically, like I said before, these groups, they're training groups that they're being put into. So A, B, and C, and D, and even the F grade, which is a fail. It's not really about the ranking and whether or not, I know that people are going to vote based on those rankings, but really it's about putting you in the right group so you can learn at the right speed. But then sometimes you'll see that it doesn't quite work out that way. And then the next group after them was Auto Megida, and I feel like this group was one I was looking forward to because Hata Mena and Sutani Urara, who are both in my top 11, are in this group. And so I was kind of looking forward to seeing how they would do. And at the end of the day, I feel like they sang in unison in not a very good way. It kind of sounded like just everyone kind of trying to talk, sing at once, and it didn't feel like there was a lot of harmony there. And so this group was kind of lacking in vocals, but the performance itself overall was passable. And I was glad to see that Hatamena got B, Tsutani Urara got B, and it feels like the trainers kind of saved them in that respect. But the rest of the groups got F, and so that's bad news for the rest. It seems like it wasn't that bad that they should all fail, but it maybe they didn't care much for them. They didn't stand out enough. And then I think they did do solos at the end of this one as well. And then I think one of the reasons one of them got to fail was that Tani Seiya, she was just kind of doing this kind of weird dancing, and everyone was kind of laughing about it. And so that's kind of where it ended up for these girls. Lemon Squash came up after Automed Jedi, and they were like sports girls. They sounded okay, but Bruno's voice, in my opinion, was not that good. The dancing was okay, but overall it was very basic. They all got C's. It was basically mid across the board, and they were upset that they were basically just there was no feedback at all. They kind of just got all C's, like no individual feedback. And one of them was especially more upset about that than the others. So this group is Little Heroine. To me, they appeared put together when they came out, but when they were actually performing, the vocals were kind of inconsistent at many different levels. It seemed like they could sing, but then sometimes they couldn't, and it just depended on like how they were singing. And so what I found out is that, you know, Shizuku is an opera singer, and it appears that she sings in a very particular way, but for some reason it didn't translate well. She ended up getting D class, along with Mitsuki, who was like, after they asked them to perform individually after their performance, she actually cried, and then she got scolded for just complaining about like not being confident. And someone was saying like, you have an opportunity. It's insulting for you to not to just take every chance you can get. And so she didn't take her solo chance, and she got ranked D. Now, what's interesting about this group is Kokona is in it, Nakano Kokona, staring contest girl, and she can rap, and she got a B, and so I was very happy about that because she's in my top 11 as well. And so I'm just trying to like maintain my integrity about like who is in my top 11. I hope they do well, and if they don't do well, I'm going to be disappointed a little bit. But that's basically it. The rest of them, they sung okay. And then after a commercial break, we get Vitamin Bomb, which is kind of like a very funny group. They sang a song I actually reacted to on this channel. I don't remember the name of the song right now, but they were doing like all the dance moves and everything. But this is kind of like the funny girls group, and obviously Shimizu Keiko, she's in my top 11 from the very beginning, and she's got like this kind of like very humorous personality. I noticed something though that I feel like if Keiko keeps doing kind of this like over the top funny thing, she may pigeonhole herself into funny concept, which is like you get to a point where when you are trying to express a different emotion, people may not take you seriously, or you may not know how to express it. And so I'm kind of worried about that. And a lot of the time she's like extremely extra, right? You can just see like her even in these previews, and they're all kind of like funny girls as well, I think. But I think Renan is kind of like someone you can't take seriously, and Bando, I didn't actually assume that she would be this funny, but she ended up like, I feel like she paled in comparison to the others. It's another situation where I think everyone got bell curved by Keiko, just because Keiko is just so over the top funny. She just has a funny look as well, and they express something about in her background how she has like all these siblings who are like all boys, and so she was basically talking about how her personality is basically a side effect of having to survive in that environment. And so that was kind of a comedic thing that the chat really liked as well. Chat really likes this kind of over the top stuff. The next group was High Queens, and I thought their performance was actually pretty good. And I noticed that Yuki, she's in my top 11, so it's kind of like a little bit biased here. But I did notice her, and I would say that she was top level with micro movements in her dance. But for this group overall, the singing was not special. The trainers in the end gave them, they gave Shueri a C rank, and then they gave Yuki, who is my top 11, a B rank. And basically she was crying about being scolded about how she didn't give enough emotion. They say that maybe she was too technical and she didn't express enough. And so that happened. I don't really have any comment about it. So I'm skipping past this group, which is Temptation of the Muse. To me, it was like the performance was okay, singing was okay, but it was inconsistent in the vocals. But the potential for vocals is there. But mainly, I'm interested in the next group, which is DD Crash. And so DD Crash consists of one of my top 11s, Pseudo Sakura. And I feel like, Pseudo Sakura, she should always smile because she just has that infectious kind of like cheerful attitude. And I feel like when she's not smiling, when she's sad, she actually like completely flips the other way around. It's kind of like imagine someone who could make you happy, but then they could also make you very sad just with their expression alone. And so that's kind of like interesting thing about her. In terms of their performance, I feel like they had a good presentation. All of them, they started out really strong. The previews actually tricked me that they would be bad, but they were good. And I noticed that Sakura at the end didn't do a high note with enough zeal. Like it feels like it was kind of they held back and just kind of played it safe, which I think like they should try to figure it out. Someone should try to do a better job of it. And anyways, Pseudo Sakura, she ended up getting an A in her class, and then the rest got B's, which are not bad at all. So there seems to be a short break or intermission where everyone starts to fall asleep, and then they decide to play music that some people seem to know the choreo to. So these girls came on stage, started dancing. Just a brief little thing before the next group, which is Twinkle, which is the twins. And so when they danced and performed, they actually danced and performed pretty much at the same level. But I did notice that I feel like Mikoto actually moves better than Kotone. And I know that in the show so far, Kotone has been ranked higher by the other contestants, and as I feel like she's doing better with the voting audience too. But I feel like I look at commentary on them, and everyone agrees that Mikoto's better. And I would just look at their movements here, and I notice Mikoto's movements are just bigger and more. They're just slightly better. I don't know, but they're pretty close. But anyways, I just wanted to point that out that it's kind of strange that there's a discrepancy between the people who kind of talk about this and analyze it versus the people at home who just kind of like look at it and vote, and then the trainers too as well, or not the trainers but the contestants on the show who look at them and kind of like I guess judge them early on. I don't know whether it was based on the early rankings. I think they just saw. I don't know if it's a 1 minute intro, but maybe that was it. I'm gonna skip over Love of Fukuoka. Basically, the gist of it is that Rio's voice did not sound great to me. I felt like Karen maybe had the best voice, and the dance was okay, and sometimes the vocals felt slightly harsh. And so let's just get to the next group, which is Eye Catcher. And Eye Catcher, I noticed that in Eye Catcher, Arisa had the voice that was pretty decent, and then the others were just okay, but their dance was good. But everyone kind of did not rank that high. Momoka got C, Aki got D, Ran got B, and Arisa, who I said had a pretty decent voice, got D. And then Yuna got an F, and Yuna's not even like one of the 96, and she was kind of just, I guess, discarded. There's a couple of people here who are in these groups who are not in the final rankings of the 96. I guess there used to be 101 because it's Produce 101. And so these 5 girls got cut, and I can account for at least 3 of them, but 2 of them I'm unsure of. Maybe I just completely missed it, or they were gone before. But then something happened at the end of this is that Aki claimed that she could do a sexy dance, and then she basically got shot down as being kind of a imitator, someone not expressing from themselves, and it looked like there was no connection to the dance as far as Reno was concerned, the trainer. And then we continue with our cliffhanger of Rebloom from the last episode. When they came out, they had like the strongest stage presence, just as far as just standing there and looking the part and having the right face expressions. But I did notice that during the performance, Kokoro, she was slightly muted. I'm not really sure why. The vocals were very clear, and I feel like they should have done a song that was kind of more, I guess, emotive rather than technical, because this song is like there's a lot of words in it, and then the moves are very quick. But like, maybe they could have done a ballad, or they could have done something that was like a little bit more of an anthem, like people would know and sing along with. Some people did sing along with this one. I'm not saying they didn't, but I feel like it's kind of like it's just like a cheerful song. It's not like a song that has like a lot of depth to it. I think at least that's the way it comes across. And then uh, what we know about these guys is they're former idols. Momona hasn't performed in 3 years. But yeah, they just gave this kind of very technically good performance, and even the trainer said it was kind of more of a skill thing, but they wanted more emotion out of them, and so there was an agreement there with them and me, and I feel like maybe they're closed off because of long inactivity or shame even, and because there's some people who are very talented in this world, and because they don't achieve something great, or they don't quite reach where they should reach, or they fell from someplace high, they start to carry a sense of shame. It's like, what are you doing? Weren't you in the cherry bullet before? And it's like, no, I'm not in it anymore. Like, what do you say to that, right? And so you carry some sense of shame, and it closes you off, right? But what's something that interesting that happened is that Momona was the first to get an A, and then there was kind of a building tension thing. And then as soon as Kokoro was also announced to get an A, I know that Momona kind of fell down for her, right? And she had a reaction on behalf of Kokoro, and Kokoro was just basically like, I feel like she didn't even really register that it happened, because I think her confidence levels are so low right now. But I feel like you can see here she's reacting for her. I feel like Kokoro basically is gonna have like a more upward ramping from here, because after this is basically the beginner camp, and so we get to the beginner camp after this, and it's basically the girls. They go to their dorm rooms, and they this is where they get 3 days of practice and lessons, and they get to finally like live together and kind of spend time together as well. And some of them they're supposed to practice all night, and they end up practicing in their dorm rooms as well. And so in this case, when they are kind of studying, they go to different rooms here, and they perform in these different ranks. But they're warned that if they don't perform the signal song properly, they won't go on stage at all. And so that's that. Something also I want to mention is that these dorms, they're like packed like sardines. Maybe this is typical for Japanese people, because I know that Japanese people have very tight spaces to live in. But it seemed like you can't even like stand in between each bed. So you just gotta come in at the foot of the bed or something. I guess there's enough space for like small girls. But anyways, we get to go through a rundown of each class that's currently green is D. I think F is gray. B is, I think, orange, or might be, I can't remember if B is orange or C is orange, but A is definitely pink. And in D, we kind of see that Bando Fuka and Kikukawa Aki were upset about being in D class at first, but then later on they realized, basically because of what Nakasone was saying, was that they actually weren't ready for it, and they got upset about that. But she told them that really they shouldn't be upset, because it's not really that they were kind of like, they should lose confidence over it. They should really be happy that they lost their illusions about, how good they think they really are. And if you know where you stand, that's how you know how you can improve. And so I thought that was a really interesting lesson that they put into the show. They were scolded pretty harshly about doing things wrong, like getting the intro wrong, or not singing during the first intro when they were showing the trainer at first. But basically, she told them, I'm not feeling it. What you have to do when you're performing the song is imagine your own story. And then as soon as they did, they performed way better. And so she was very happy about that. The trainer was, at least. Now we go to Group F, and something funny about this is that trainer Yumeki, he looks legitimately upset with their performance. And he threatens that they won't be allowed to perform. And at this point, I'm wondering, hey, why is the guy who actually made the choreo dealing with the F grade? And then I realized, like, he's actually the great filter here, because he's basically telling them, you guys can't perform my choreo if you guys can't perform it properly. And so he's basically just saying, if you guys can't handle this, you're not gonna go on stage at all. No one from F is gonna go on stage. So I think F class people are basically just not gonna appear in the Signal song, and maybe that did that actually happen? I feel like it did. Now, other things worth mentioning about F group is that Kotane, the girl with the red hair, she's basically told that maybe she should be a C, but because she has low self esteem, maybe she was holding back. And I would say, I feel like maybe there is something there that she's just not confident with herself. And, I feel like to some degree she should try to be more herself and figure out what that is. Because it seems like she's trying to run away from it in a way. And, like stop dyeing your hair maybe. And, try to have your natural look and just do something about like just being yourself. Because I feel like there is a wall there and there is like something that whatever she's doing, it doesn't feel authentic. And so that's something that even the trainer would say, yeah, you are very skilled, but maybe you're not doing as well. But I did like that when it came to F class, they were very motivated to make sure that the final goal would be that F class is empty and no one would be there, because if anyone was still in F class by the end of it, they wouldn't be able to perform on the Signal song, and that'd be very disappointing for them. Another funny thing is that Hata Maynard drops by for F class, and Hata Maynard, I think she's in B class, perhaps, and she comes by to help the F grades, and I thought that was very nice, and Chad really noticed that as well. They also showcased Ishii Ran helping everyone else, and everyone was like looking towards her for advice in the B group. I guess they weren't getting the training as quickly, but I hope that she's actually good according to trainers, because even though you're helping people, maybe you're not helping them in a good way for all you know, right? But some people just like, I guess maybe I hope that they can tell when someone's better or not, and hopefully she is better than the other ones. Trainer Nakasone Reno basically said that this group's dance was weak, and that's kind of surprising for a B group. Sakaguchi Reno, this girl who was basically outshined by Tsukushi, she basically said that she felt average and mid, not standing out. And the trainer Reno basically says, improvise and don't follow the choreo, or something to that extent. Basically said, don't do what's there, do something unexpected. And I thought that was interesting advice. And I don't, are they actually allowed to do that? Because that'd be cool if you could. Like I would say that, yeah, if you're allowed to go outside of choreo and it doesn't affect the rest of your team, I think that would be cool. But it is, I guess, valid advice for sticking out ahead of everyone else if everyone else is just doing average. Other than that, Lee Hong-gi said the vocals don't stand out enough. And then there's an issue with Joa, who's basically lacking in confidence and performing very shakily. And I don't know what's going on with Joa, but where is she? Girl on the far left. She's just, she's not doing very well. She's very quiet. Vocals are not strong, and she's just lacking in confidence, lacking in the willingness to try. And this is something I mentioned, I think, in the last episode as well. When you look at the show America to Korea, you had Yuna and you had KG, who are two people who are falling behind. And then Yuna was basically frozen by her lack of confidence, whereas KG, the motivation wasn't her confidence. She just wanted to take the opportunity no matter what. And so it really wasn't about whether or not she was going to do well or not. She was going to try to do well for the sake of having and taking the opportunity. And so I feel like that's something that they should all kind of try to figure out, because a lot of people become paralyzed for some reason by their confidence. I don't really mean some reason like it's a mystery. I understand perfectly, by the way. I'm not like trying to say that everyone has to have a magical ability to overcome this, but maybe there has to be something in the mentality of really like wanting something and hungering for it, and that's why some people get it and then some people can't. And then when it comes to C group, this group seemed to need more personal attention, and I feel like many here felt misplaced, but at the same time I noticed that they didn't really work together so much as everyone kind of had to overcome their own personal demons, right? Yeah, for example, you had Momoka who can't even do high notes because she has a lower husky range. Uh, and she just has to figure out a way to deal with that. Maybe ask the right questions in order to get an answer that was help you overcome that issue. Then you have another girl, Aita Rin, who had 10 years of dance. And it was kind of interesting thing because Aita here, even though she has 10 years of dance, uh, Nakasone Reno, the trainer, basically mistook her for a beginner and saying, "Oh, I'm surprised to hear that." Chat was kind of laughing about it, and then some of chat was scolding chat for laughing about it. But I think it's fair that it's kind of like an ironic thing, and it's kind of amusing in that way. But I noticed that yeah, some were basically scolding chat on her behalf, which is kind of like, I mean, it's kind of funny when you think about it. But at the same time, yeah, there are many people, and I have a story about this with a friend of mine who was taking vocal lessons for years, and basically he was taking vocal lessons, but his teacher wasn't really that great and didn't really know how to help him. It was just kind of like taking his money to give him lessons, and I'm kind of worried that Rin was basically doing something similar, because if she's taking 10 years of dance but she's not improving, that means that the dance teacher is either focusing on someone who's a prodigy and kind of just taking the rest to subsidize like the growth of a more important students, or that dancer didn't really know what was going on, was just kind of like giving people like lessons or putting them through a dance school and not really caring about them. And so that's just kind of something that happens. And I don't know if you like need private instruction or you need like someone who's gonna tutor you in a competition style rather than in a school, because sometimes if you're being tutored by someone whose goal is going to be to help you win, maybe that's going to be better than someone who's just kind of just, oh, here are the basics, do this exercise and build your body up and do kind of like this stuff, but you don't really know how to improve. And I feel like that's a shame. If she's in dance for 10 years and she's not doing that well, you'd imagine 10 years you should learn how to do and overcome every mistake in dance. And then finally, we get to A group, A class. Ebihara Suzumi, she was struggling. And at this point, I'm thinking to myself, why would they advance someone to A class based purely on their vocals without like adequately judging their ability to dance? Because I feel like that's what they did here. They gave Suzumi a pass. And I was saying this early on as well. I was like, oh, I don't really know, like, if do people just vibe check her and then just like think that she expresses herself well in singing, and that's why she was advanced so far ahead. Like she had the first rank based on other idols, other trainees, sorry, judging her as the top, and then the trainers themselves advanced to A class. And I don't know if that's based on just the benefit of the doubt, but clearly she had a lot of struggling. She actually went to B class after A class finished his training and started studying with B class as well. So I did notice that other than this, YUMEKI shows up again, and he's actually way harder on this team, and that was like interesting to me because I remember him in F group and A class, and he's scary in both of them, I think. And then everyone in this group was basically struggling. I think a lot of them thought they were better than they were, and then they got bad feedback from a guy who had really high standards, and then it just broke them so easily. And I think that to some degree, it kind of reminds me of what happened earlier with the D group, and a lot of these girls are kind of either coming face to face with the fact that they are lacking confidence, but they want to take this chance, and then at the same time, some of them are losing delusions and illusions about how good they actually are, and so they have to face the truth here, and then really study and micromanage themselves. They have to be self-starters to some degree because, you don't really have someone there who's going to say this move is wrong. You basically just get to see a trainer maybe once every day, but then you got to practice nonstop and hope that either your teammates or you figure out what you're doing wrong. So there was a lot of crying in this group, and it's funny because even at one point, Shimizu Keiko, who's the funny girl, she's trying to motivate everyone to be happy here. And at this point, I'm like thinking, why is she so like being comical? She doesn't really have the solution to these girls' problems. And so you have to understand that a lot of people, comedy is like a coping mechanism. And so she's trying to motivate everyone. But this reminds me of a story about a guy I knew. This guy named Kip. And he watched too much anime. And he thought that anime, like the way things happen in anime, was the right way to behave in real life. But he said the most absurd thing. Like, well, there's one time I actually wanted to hit him because he was like trying to tell this girl who was like basically like sexually abused, right? To like be nice to her abuser and like saying that he's eventually gonna become her ally. I'm like, what anime are you watching, kid? Like, what's going on here? Like, why are you thinking that this is okay? It's not okay. Like some people, they're kind of like, dude. I'm not saying this girl's like that, by the way, but I'm just saying it gives me that vibe of that guy who like he lives in a completely different world and his coping tactics he never really applies them in real life. I think that's the difference. I think Keiko is a real person grounded in reality, and everyone likes her. But I'm just saying that it kind of gave me that vibe of that one guy, and no one ever likes that guy's answers to everything. By the way, but anyways, I feel like she was trying to motivate everyone, and later on, she ends up crying too because obviously the pressure is very real, and it turns out like they didn't really have a real solution to it. It took Thelma here, one of the trainers, to really give them a motivating pep talk, something that was like very. There's a huge contrast between what was said to them by YUMEKI, who was kind of cold and saying, do my choreo properly, but she was basically way more positive and just sometimes when you don't have a rational solution to someone's problem, the best solution is to show people love. And that's what I've learned about like life. And sometimes I'm really harsh and very like blunt with people, right? And sometimes I feel like they need it, but then sometimes people come to you with problems and they'll explain what they're feeling, and there's no rational solution to a problem when some people just aren't rational either. And so the best thing you can do is just love and support. And I feel like sometimes that helps, and especially with girls, that seems to help them a lot. Hey, I have two sisters. I have a lot of nieces. I have like a lot of friends who are women as well, and that always helps. I feel like. But anyways, girls were crying a lot, and there was kind of a montage after that, and then they get to reevaluation day, and I noticed something interesting is that it's all remote observation rather than them standing in front of the trainers, and I thought that was kind of like a cop out because I remember Boys Planet, they actually had to perform in front of trainers who intimidated them. But in this one, they basically got to just perform for a camera, which was like less pressure. And I feel like more girls may have like been better off for it. But I think that they should have had to face that demon early on and then get put in the proper, because it just basically increases your chances to choke when on the actual stage, I guess. But I guess it doesn't really matter at this point. It's just a signal song, right? But anyways, that's pretty much it. There's another montage of just these performances and their evaluations. Many choked. Many choked. Kamada Moe felt like she did really bad. Serena had poor vocals. I don't really want to get through all of them because it kind of just rushes through, just random ones. But then we get to we don't get to see what their reevaluation score is, but we do get rankings from the actual, whatchamacallit, I guess the audience is the right word. But, you get all these girls from 96, and then 88 to 78, 77, and I'm assuming you guys don't read Japanese. And so I did create a chart of all these so I know who they all are. And the subtitle guys actually made a mistake at I think 52 and 53, and they put one girl twice. And then we get to see the top two, and it's Kokoro and Suzu, and that's really surprising to me. A lot of people were basically in chat very surprised about that as well. They're like, wait, it's not Miyu? And I think that they didn't really understand that these are based on votes. And so I would say that's still surprising based on the votes, because I don't know where this top 11 is coming from. Like, I just don't understand it personally, but it's fine, right? That's just the way it always goes. And so after that, they kind of just hint that all these girls are gonna have a in the next episode they're gonna go into I think self-chosen teams or teams based on some kind of challenge where they have to like select a song. We don't get to see the final results of who's in the new A class, B class, C class, D class. But I do know that, like, from looking at the numbers, it seems like over 50% of pretty much each class gets shuffled. But I don't know if it's up or down. And then after that, you just kind of get a brief part where the girls are calling their families, and you kind of like they're crying while they're talking to their moms, mostly, except for Bando Fuka. She kind of just talked casually. But that's it. Wow, this video went way too long. It's almost as long as an episode of the show. But anyways, I guess that's it. What else is there? Bingo. Let's end on bingo, because I didn't really look properly at bingo. So small village visit didn't happen yet. Siblings or twins separated. That kind of happened because apparently one of the people on the show was already separated from their twin before the 101 girls were selected. But I'm thinking that it's eventually going to happen. Mikoto and Kotane are definitely going to be separated, if even just by rank. But let's see if one of them gets eliminated before the other. We'll save that for later, just to make sure it's a clean break. Egotistic bad teammate remains to be seen, but a lot of opportunities. I'm thinking it's kind of we're already seeing some of them are very overconfident. Trainees last chance. That's a lot of them, actually. I feel like I should just get this one as a freebie, because a lot of them are kind of like that already. Trainee is poor. I feel like we've seen that, but I don't remember off the top of my head who it was, so I'm just gonna leave it. Now, the one girl that girls like, I feel like, was that every hour? Well, I'll save that for later, just to see, like, there's got to be one girl who just missed congeniality. It may be Sakura Miyu, because she gets chosen by everyone to be first, because I think they explicitly expressed that whoever's in first place in the signal song was chosen by the other contestants. Sob story intro, I feel like that happened, but I can't remember who at this point. Cliffhanger edit, that kind of happened in the last episode. Leader who won't lead. We'll see for the team projects what's going to happen here. One girl already famous. Well, we got a few girls already famous. Body criticism. I haven't seen anyone like get too skinny or get too big yet and then get chastised by one of the trainers. I don't know if that happens on this show. It might. Girl cries. That definitely happened a lot of times. Show milks drama. That's basically just a show. Sports day hasn't happened. Sports day is also outside or outdoor day where they go on a field trip. So I'm just going to say that's a field trip. We'll see what that happens. Early fave pressure. We'll see. No one's really ranked properly yet. Talented villain exists. I don't know if that exists for this this group of girls. Okay, so the rest, coach picks on a high-ranking person. We'll see what happens. Pretty girl gets free ride. None of that really happened, actually. Early fave coasting. We'll see. We'll see. I don't really know who the favorites are. That's why it's kind of a surprise, because what people are voting for is very different from what people are talking about. And so there is this kind of separate. I guess people who watch the show and talk about it in real life are very different from people who watch everything online. You know, I actually don't watch any of the YouTube clips. I judge everything based on what the show shows me. And that's kind of like a policy I have, is to kind of mimic the home experience. But anyways, I guess that's it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comment box down below. Also, if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.